Hello, my beautiful friends, my fellow sparkly space blobs, my beautiful butterflies emerging into your newest form. Wherever you are on the journey, you know I am so excited to have you here with me. And if you are new in this space, my name is Sarah. And what we do here is really take apart some of these archetypes and stories and mythologies and bring them into a deeper sense of safety, of communion, of softness, but also empowerment and clarity. And this is really a space for all of us who kind of have to live a different life and have had to find different ways of moving through this world because we don't quite fit into the normative model of living a life. And I just appreciate this community so much. And I got really inspired to sit down today and talk through 4 major shifts that are going on in 2025. There's a lot happening this year, including Venus retrogrades and, of course, eclipse seasons and Mercury retrogrades. As I sit here right now, it is Mars retrograde. But I wanted to talk about 4 big planets that are shifting signs this year because we do have a lot going on there. Neptune, Saturn, Jupiter, and Uranus are all going to move signs this year. And that is going to change the energy of what we're working with and how we are doing things. And for me, this is an opportunity for each of us in our individual experience to connect with our soul song, connect with where we truly want to use our energy. In recent events and thinking about kind of these broken systems that are really not serving communities that deserve better, I've really been having these aha moments where I've realized that no giant system can save us or give us permission to have joy or creativity or connection to our soul song. Like we will wait our entire lives for this perfect day when everything is just safe and tidy and loving before we are allowed to connect with this type of joy. And in some ways, this is the most radical thing we can do, is to really choose to honor that. And yes, that will include challenges and grief and confusion and even fog. There will be seasons where we don't know exactly what to do or how to put our next foot forward and what that's going to look like. And yet it is still about coming into that deep power. And I think it's so important right now to bring that resonance and joy and presence. And I think these planetary shifts are a great symbolic place to do that, because here's the thing. This is not going to be a predictive video. I'm not going to sit here for the next little while and tell you this is what's going to happen in culture. This is how it's going to feel. This is where it's going to be stressful. This is where it's going to be fun. What I'm going to be setting us up to do here, talking about these 4 big planetary shifts, is to think about how you want to engage with them meaningfully, because we are meaning-making beings. And meaning-making is more than just sitting around ruminating in our thoughts. It's about dissolving into something bigger. It's about connecting to our life path. It's about inviting synchronicity in. It's about amplifying our internal signal so that we can call forward the elements that belong to us and with us, and to commune with life more deeply. And I think this is a really great opportunity to do that. So that is what we're going to do today. I'm going to walk through these 4 planetary shifts and give you some frameworks to play with them. And think about this year as kind of walking through a doorway where you are choosing to be in communion with your soul song in a really stubborn, clear, consistent way that feels like you coming home to you, even when the world continues to not give us the systems and the care and the love that we would love to see. Despite that, we're going to get into this and feel through it together. And this practice and thinking through this has really been giving me such a sense of clarity and really helped me. So I hope that this will also be super helpful to you. And if you like this kind of stuff, I really highly suggest sticking around, subscribing, and let me know what are some of the big themes coming up for you as we're already stepping into this big old 2025. The first shift that we are going to be exploring this year is going to be Neptune shifting out of Pisces and into Aries. And this is totally new territory that we are working with. And I'm really curious to see what happens and how it feels to work with this energy combination. It's really hard for me to verbally express the energy of Neptune because it's such a non-verbal energy. You know, Neptune is connected to oneness consciousness, the dissolving of boundaries, like the dissolving of this idea of being an individual and feeling that ecstatic sense of connection, timelessness, fantasy, the diffuse sense of being in a bigger energy system than our little analytical minds could ever wrap our minds around. You know, Neptune ushers us into a spiritual journey, and Neptune has been at home in Pisces since April 2011 for the last 14 years. And that has actually brought up some really interesting questions on the larger scale about what makes a good life, what makes it possible to live in our human selves in ways that feel good. I think a lot of evolution has come about and understanding has come about when it comes to the fields of psychology and spirituality and understanding how these themes actually affect the way we live and how important these tools are. And they have changed and they have evolved in that time. And I think many of us have found a lot of wisdom and connection points through Neptune in Pisces. It's also left many of us asking big questions about how do we live in a functional world, because Neptune in Pisces is much more interested in that non-physical energetic level and sometimes doesn't always bring all of the practical answers into the mundane world so easily, right? And this is where I'm really intrigued by the shift of Neptune into Aries, because this is an interesting combo. Now, this is one of my favorite points symbolically that we can work with in the 12 signs, because as we shift out of the oneness consciousness of Pisces into the experience of individual self in Aries, we're having this complete rebirth, reset, re-exploration time going on. And the theme that came up for me, and one of the ways that I think it's really going to be powerful to work with Neptune this year, is to think about changing your identity. And I do not mean that on a superficial level where, you know, you just kind of slap on a top layer of a costume and say, I have a new identity, or just like force yourself to be positive all the time, or, you know, kind of sidestep the deeper work. I don't mean that at all. What I mean is that this is a really powerful time this year because Neptune's going to be moving between Aries and Pisces a little bit this year. This is a really great opportunity to think and be very clear about the way you talk about yourself, about the way you talk about your existence in this world, the meaning of yourself in this world. What is your identity? How does that language form? What do you want it to be? If you were to imagine that you have the gift of beginning new and getting to be just who you are right in this moment, how do you want to talk about yourself? How do you want to treat yourself? How do you want to honor this being that you are with all of the wisdom that we've just gained from Neptune in Pisces? Because now we're drawing from the deep well of that knowledge. We are not coming here to just experience individuality and, you know, that means like accomplishing everything and getting to the top of the mountain and being busier and hotter according to fashion magazines or whatever. Like none of that's very interesting. This Neptunian transit, I think, being informed by so much work that we did in Pisces, is going to be about what fills your cup, what brings you to life, what helps you glow from the inside out. Is it art? Is it sleep? Is it community? Is it laughter? Is it messy art that gets all over the place? Is it stand-up comedy? I don't even know. Whatever it is, how do you allow that into your life? Do you allow that to be a central part of the way you talk about your individual self? How do you define your individual self? What does that look like? What does that sound like? Really using this as an opportunity to get very, very clear about how you want to treat yourself and how you want to talk about yourself and honoring that. And I think this is just one of those special places where we can do that kind of exploration and really, really understand that the world of the non-physical, the world of the connective, the world of the fantastical helps inform a very integrated, loving, present, joyful individual self that can really show up fully to life. And because Neptune is going to be shifting between Aries and Pisces this year, it's going to be also this kind of dance between these two worlds and remembering that they inform each other deeply. They aren't separate at all. And our little individual self really benefits from the consciousness that we also dissolve into the bigness of everything. We don't have to be exceptional. We don't have to be highly productive in order to highlight our soul song and to be able to change the way we talk about that and choose to have an identity that is based deeply rooted in that soul song. And for me, this shift, which starts on March 30th on into Aries, and then we'll stick in Aries until October 22nd, and then we'll shift back into Pisces for the last part of the year, and then we'll move back into Aries in January of next year. This is such a powerful time to get really intentional and clear about the identity you want to bring forward in this next energetic cycle, as well as drawing from those deep waters of what you already know to be true about who you are and your value in this world. I just think this is going to be such an interesting transition period, and I'm really looking forward to coming back around because I am not going to just scratch the surface. We are going to be talking about each of these transits in more depth as we move through the year. So don't worry, we're coming back to this very, very soon. Our transitions between Pisces and Aries are not finished with Neptune, because shortly after the Neptune shift in May, we have Saturn shifting out of Pisces and into Aries for the next few years. For the next 3 years, we're going to be working with Saturn in Aries until April 2028. So we are once again working with the shift between the cosmic unified field into experiencing life as an individual spark and flame and experiencing the thrill and the joy of that birthing process. So we are really working with quite powerful newborn energy of this year as both Neptune and Saturn shift and do this kind of doorway transformation process. So Saturn is a really interesting place to work. I know so often, we talk about Saturn returns, we talk about Saturn as a planet of restriction, and a lot of times you'll see memes about Saturn being like kind of this strict daddy figure that's like very unhealthy, very patriarchal, very problematic to me. I don't like it. I've never connected to that for 1 millisecond. For me, Saturn is how we really care for ourselves, how we build foundations that honor our souls, how we show up for that. And for me, what I really love about Saturn shifting into Aries is that we've just spent the last few years with Saturn and Pisces. And there's been so many lessons about how important it is to connect to something bigger than ourselves, to find meaning in those bigger spaces, and that is one of the ways through which we build a meaningful life and we find our way in this world. Now we're taking that wisdom, we're moving it into Aries, and now we're going to get really honest and clear. And I think this is on a cultural level too. Coming out of the floating energy of Pisces, which I am a huge fan of, by the way, it's kind of one of my modalities. I'm over there in Pisces Neptunian floating land, that's a comfort zone for me. But coming into Aries, it's like we got to get real about what's working, what feels true, what feels icky. And I think culturally, it's going to be interesting to see that. But also, if we're thinking about this, we're building a foundation based on treating ourselves like this unique flame that we are. What do you actually want? Do you feel selfish for wanting certain things or needing certain things? Who do you think you're going to let down if you choose to listen to what you need? That's going to be a question that I think comes up time and again. But this is also a really inspirational combo because Saturn and Aries is things are possible. Change is possible. Rebirth is possible. Redefinition is possible. That we're never stuck fully in one modality of being, that we're never stuck in one way of doing things. Aries is the ever renewing beginning point. So Saturn here, building a foundation on knowing that we can discern and be very clear and very consistent with what we want to see in the world, and we can give birth to that. And I think really at the core, when I think about this Saturn and Aries conversation, which begins on May 24th and goes till May 24th, 2025, and it goes till April 12th, 2028, what I really think is crucial here is, can we start to learn to trust what we actually enjoy and love? Can we learn to trust that we don't need to go through a whole bunch of self-torture in order to improve the world? I think that's such a tempting thing right now, to put ourselves through a lot of self-torture and go through a lot of emotional turmoil thinking about all the problems that we have in the world. And I know we're conscientious, we're empathic, we're thinking about those things. However, trusting what feels clear and true is essential when working with Saturn and Aries, because the honesty is going to be there, and it's a time to really just let yourself know what you know and work with it. So get honest about what you love. Get honest about what you prefer. Practice, allowing yourself to voice your desires and your preferences clearly. This is also another opportunity here as we step into the May and the middle of the year to really think about how you want to do that. And giving yourself the permission to do it is going to be such an essential part of working with Saturn in Aries. It is going to be a very honest but very clear time. And in some ways it will be very refreshing after a time of the more diffuse, non-judgmental, floating energy of Saturn in Pisces. Now we're getting some clarity. Now we're moving forward. So what paths do you actually want to be on? And can you allow yourself the clarity of knowing it? The shift that I admittedly am the most excited about this year is definitely Jupiter moving out of Gemini and into Cancer. I love Cancerian wisdom, and Jupiter in Cancer is a really beautiful placement. And the phrase that came to mind for me when I was thinking about this shift is, let intuition bring in the weird and invite synchronicity into life. They have done research in the field of psychology on the experience of synchronicity, and they've found that people who are on the lookout for synchronicity experience it more and more and more, and people who are shut off from it experience it very minimally, if not at all. And of course that makes sense. Our brain is very good at picking up on things that we're paying attention to. However, they've also found that this impacts the lived experience of life, and that it actually improves mental health, improves the experience of connectivity in the world, and improves the way people experience their lived life, even in times of darkness, trouble, and fear. And for me, Jupiter in Cancer is that. Let synchronicity expand in your life. It doesn't make you lazy or delusional. It helps you experience the deep web of connectivity that we are really truly in. And that's what I love about this. Jupiter is at home in Cancer. So not at home, but exalted, let's say. Jupiter rules Sagittarius, but Jupiter in Cancer is this beautiful expansion of love, creativity, self-expression, gut knowing, intuition, relaxing into self-trust, relaxing into this deep sense of safety within ourselves, because we have this deep sense of inner mothering and love that frees us to be weirdos in life, and is that is just the best thing I can ever think about. So for me, this is really about just an amplification of that trust process, an amplification of that synchronicity process, an amplification of connecting to a deep internal loving system that just loves us as we are, of I know many people will say that people with Jupiter in Cancer are really expressive. They often will be wearing clothes or jewelry or doing their hair in a really unique kind of artsy way. And I love that, because for me, thinking about Jupiter and Cancer is like, how do we allow ourselves to express all the funny little intuitive nudges we get in a day, rather than following the script of what we have to look like externally, getting ready in the mirror. Okay, I'm going to look like this. Following that little nudge that says, I'm going to like just put a weird line of yellow on my face because that just sounds fun, or whatever it might be. Like, that's Jupiter and Cancer. It's following the nudges. Some of the questions that came to mind for me with this, and these are going to seem taboo if you're somebody who's feeling very conscientious about the world right now. These might even feel like they are not allowed to ask, because it will feel like, are you being diligent enough with caring for the world? But I want to ask these questions. How good are you willing to let it get? Are you willing to let go of the status quo? Do you feel worthy of a life that feels loving and nurturing? These are the questions that I think Jupiter in Cancer is going to bring up over and over again. And we're not getting to Jupiter in Cancer till June. So, this energy, we've got a little ways from the point I'm sitting at right here. However, with this shift, I think what's important here is we're still working with Jupiter and Gemini right now, which is all about like opening our minds, opening the idea of what life has to look like, getting surprised by what ingredients want to come in, changing our minds, realizing that we're not just one static thing, that we are many things, and that we can wear many different hats, and many things can be true simultaneously, which has been very helpful for many of us getting inventive about how we want to shift life, culture, the way we're experiencing it. And that is going to directly inform our shift into Jupiter and Cancer, where we are now being asked to live with the intuition, like live life via intuition, where Gemini can be sometimes up in the head a little bit. Cancer brings that energy down to our gut, to our core, to the creative center of our energy, and how are we letting ourselves live it? And so as we kind of think about this year, we can start to prepare for that connective point with Jupiter and Cancer by giving ourselves the little challenge of bringing in intuition and synchronicity more, and giving ourselves the permission to allow that to be a part of our mundane life. Even if systems are failing us, even if loud, horrible people are saying loud, horrible things, can we let the weird, the intuitive, the beautiful, the loving, the joyful in now? Because if we start preparing that path now, by the time we get to June and Jupiter's moving into Cancer, guess what? We're going to be ready. We're going to be connected to that. And that is going to illuminate some of the most beautiful community, connection, mothering of each other that we could ever see in the world. So I'm very inspired. I think this is like the transit for me that I'm going to really think about preparing my path for the next few months until we get to June for beauty. And I'm just going to stubbornly do that, because I will be damned if I let horrible tiny men tell me that I can't have my joy and I can't have my vision. Oh no. Oh no, buddies. I'll be having that. Thank you. Yes, please. And I want that for all of the intuitive sensitives of this world. I want all of us to have access to that when and how we want. So I feel very strongly about Jupiter in Cancer. It is a happy place for me, and I want it to be a happy place for you. And I want something that as we sit here now, we're looking forward to it. We're savoring it. We're exploring it. So I'm looking forward to that one. The final shift I want to explore today is going to be Uranus moving out of Taurus and into Gemini on July 7th, 2025. It's going to stay in Gemini until May 2033. So we are starting a new 8-year cycle with Uranus this year. And we are finishing up Uranus in Taurus that's been going on since 2018. Now that has been a really interesting journey. I think we can all agree. Uranus is the agent of change, shift, and innovation. It wants to see what happens when we experiment with things. And I think we've been seeing some experiments, right? We've been seeing some situations turned on their side, turned on their head in interesting ways. And it's been really interesting having Uranus and Taurus, the fixed earth sign. So stability, foundation, consistency. What happens when we're playing around with our definitions of that, what that even looks like, what that even means. Where do we get stuck? Where do we kind of repeat the same lessons over and over again? Fixed signs are very good at helping us create consistency, but they can also, when we spend a little bit of time with them, they can also show us where we have feedback loops and we kind of get stuck in the same cycle. So Uranus moving into Gemini is much more free moving, I would say. And I do think that we'll probably hear some conversations this year, and we're going to come back to this. Like I keep saying this, but we have a lot to cover. I think there are going to be some astrologers out there and some voices out there that are going to be talking about this shift into Gemini as chaotic and very stressful, and to feel very stressed about it. But I think I'm never a fan of that. It doesn't help. It's not interesting. It doesn't create to be in that mindset. Uranus and Gemini for me is about breaking old rules. And a lot of the things we've been learning about Jupiter and Gemini currently right now, the longings, the preferences, the open-mindedness to ourselves and to others and to what we want life to look like, is going to follow up here with Uranus and Gemini. How do we express that? What authority figures live in our heads rent-free that just are trying to decide who we are and what we get to be in life? What rules about who we have to be or how we have to perform in the world are we just ready to let go of? What identity rules do we have about, how we speak about ourselves, how we look at ourselves? What rules are we willing to break? What are we willing to break away from? And so once again, this conversation today is all about thinking about these shift points and how we want to connect with them intentionally right now at the beginning of the year, so that we are setting ourselves up for deep connection with these energies, these synchronicities, and these paths. It's time for many of us, I think Uranus and Gemini is really calling us to start living in that more intuitive, conversational relationship to the world around us. And with all the other three shifts we've just moved through, Saturn and Neptune moving into Aries, Jupiter moving into Cancer, those three shifts are all in cardinal signs, which is about initiation, beginning, opening doors, taking a step towards something that we really mean. And we've been preparing, many of us have been preparing energy for years at this point. Developing skills, developing self-knowledge, developing self-love so that we can act in ways that are in accordance with who we really are. Uranus coming in here in mutable air, which is all about kind of the fact that the field is always shifting. It's never stuck in one place. So however much it might seem like it's only dark days coming, it's only heaviness coming, Uranus in Gemini is going to remind us that the field is always changing, that it's always possible for things to shift, that what we think of as static or stuck or what we're going to have to live with forever is always shifting. And if we're willing to connect with that actively now with who we are, that we'll actually be able to ride those waves meaningfully and connectively. So who do you want to let go of as an authority figure in your life? What rules do you want to break? What rules about who you have to be in this world do you want to break? What do you want to break away from? What is a foundational thing about Uranus and Taurus? Maybe there's been a way that you've been feeling you've been stuck, or you've had to keep doing it this one way that you're ready to let go of. This is a great shift for getting clear about what you're ready to leave behind and what freedom you are allowed to give yourself. So we have just moved through a whole bunch of energy, but like I've said about 4 times now in our conversation, my goal here is to just give us a bit of this bigger, broader picture, thinking about this year, recognizing that we are moving through really big shifts right now that mean we're engaging with life in very new and different ways. It's very exciting. It's an opportunity for us to kind of reconnect to what brings us to life and feel the permission to do that really earnestly and in a way that emphasizes our joy. And I'm really curious, which of these shifts are you most intrigued by, excited by, connected to? Which of these shifts do you feel like you don't get at all and you're like, I don't even know what I'm going to do with this? Like I've said, I will be coming back to each of these shifts as they come. So over the next 6 months, we are going to work through all 4 of these shifts and really talk through them, feel through them together, and take some time to really honor each of them because they are so deep and they have so many details within them. I'm also preparing my Venus retrograde wild dreaming process that I will be doing over on my Patreon. And it's going to move us all the way through Venus retrograde, which runs through all of March and into the first half of April. So this is all about wild dreaming. How do we take a pen and a piece of paper and all of the interesting intuitive nudges in our mind and start to connect those, start to allow our wild dreaming self, our intuitive self, our unconscious and subconscious selves to commune with us in ways that free us in our day-to-day life? How do we welcome the magic of synchronicity and connectivity that does exist in this world into our mundane lives in ways that help us feel empowered in a world that often wants us to feel less and less empowered? So that is what we are going to be doing. That is my passion project over on Patreon. It's where I'm able to offer that deeper learning. I've also worked all the way through the major and minor arcana in tarot. If you want guidance on that topic, those are all available to watch if you join up with me. So I will see you over on Patreon. I hope to see you here in this space. Every time you subscribe or leave a comment, you contribute to this little project, this little moment, this little community that we have here. And that means so much to me. I love you all so much. Let me know which of these transits you want to hear about. We're going to talk about all of them. What questions do you have? I will see you back here for our next chat. Have a beautiful beginning to this year. Keep your joy. It's yours. Don't let anybody steal it from you.